All right, everybody. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I'm sorry about that. Especially for such an exciting chapter. I'm very sorry about that. I know we got a lot. No, we got a lot of. We got a few late points. Yeah, we got a few late points. We got some stuff to catch up on. I think it's 10 late points. I think we got 10 late points. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah, 10 late points. I'm sorry. And you guys are going to be extra mad about this. So we're having some technical difficulties. I can't display my other monitor at the moment. So here's what I'm doing, all right? You guys can check. My late point count right now is at 69. If you go back to previous streams, that's what you will see it at. I'm increasing it right now to 79. I will show it at the start of Monday's stream. So you guys just remember that, all right? Late points are being updated to 79, all right? But at the moment, I don't think I can, not able to use the other monitor. So I'm sorry about that. Sorry, but that's just what we got to work with at the moment. All right, I promise it'll be set up. I'm increasing it by 10 points. You know what? Here, because we had additional bumps, I'll do you guys a solid. I will, and I feel bad about that. I'm gonna increase it to 81. So we'll do 12 late points. We're doing 12 late points today because I did move the stream time twice, and I do feel bad about that. I'm sorry, especially for such an exciting chapter. I mean, this was just like this chapter is just like, okay. The simplest way I could put it is this. All right? Before, and I know we got a lot of supers to get into and everything like that. Before, let's get stream likes up to 50 and everything real quick. Before this, I was thinking in my head, are we jumping the gun? Am I jumping the gun on Loki, right? Am I jumping the gun on Loki and how strong and significant he's going to be? You know, like, is he Pirate King, prime, above Pirate King level and stuff? By all logical, by all logic that has been established in the story, he should be, right? We saw Harold, amped Harold, etc. It just feels so absurd, too absurd to be true, right? So I was like, are we jumping the gun? Are we just, is Oda really going to make Loki stronger than those guys? And I was kind of thinking, like, Loki versus Harold, is that really definitely proof that Loki's this strong and everything? It's hard to say. I was just kind of uncertain because it's so wild to just introduce a new character out of the blue and then it's like, this guy's stronger than all these old legends, okay? Now, as of today, it's flipped. It's no longer like, damn, does it really make sense to say that Loki was equal to prime, like, Harold, amped Harold or whatever, right? Like, it's flipped. Now it's more like, goddamn, Harold, big props to him, shouts to Harold for being able to go toe-to-toe with Loki for as long as he did. Like, this is huge Harold upscale. This is insane. Harold, like, major props to him. I think some people were doubting him, but Harold's got one of the best feats in the story. I mean, obviously he was amped by Emu's powers or whatever, but this is huge Harold upscale. I don't know if anybody else could have done that. Like, big shoutouts to Harold, mad respect to Harold, to hold out for as long as he did against Loki. That's just insane. Crazy feats by Harold, right? Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. Here, I know we got a lot of supers to get through. We got a lot of supers to get through. Yeah, Jeffrey Bezos. Damn, Jeff Bezos himself coming through. Thanks for the 5. I guess everyone should have known how strong Loki was when it was revealed that his bounty was almost as high as Eustace Captain Kidd's. The bounty scaling will just never be. Bounties in One Piece, I think, stop making sense. Pre-time skip, there was always some question marks, but as of post-time skip, I think bounties have just stopped making sense to me, period. I no longer look out for bounties I just feel like Oda spins a fucking roulette wheel and he's like, this guy fucking 2 billion. All right, Captain Kidd 3 billion, you know? Top tier Treviso thanks to 2. The World Serpent agenda has admitted defeat. In a sense, but watch out for the video should come out tomorrow. Watch out for tomorrow's video because the World Serpent is actually very much still relevant. It just became even more relevant. JWP, I'm glad you enjoyed the chapter. Thanks for coming through with the 5 gifted memberships. Everyone in chat, say thank you to JWP. Let's all celebrate along with him for the chapter. Yeah, just shouts in the chat. Everyone shouts in the chat to JWP. He's always coming through, gifting a ton of memberships to a lot of people in chat. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. As usual, I'm glad you're enjoying One Piece. Obsidian Angel, thank you for the 10. People are saying that they want a brutal Sommers death when we know he's going to get brutally beaten just to show up with bandages next arc. I think Sommers will be removed. I don't think Oda's going to have him... Like, I think we're restocking some of the... I think the Gods Knights that we're getting this arc, all 3 of them are not going to be enemies in the final arc. I think that this was... It's kind of like, you know, we got Saturn last arc, and Saturn, giant piece of shit. He's not an endgame enemy, right? He's the Gorosei that was, like, the main enemy of last arc is being removed. We know Gunko's not going to be... I mean, we can imagine Gunko will be freed or whatever. She's not going to be an enemy next arc. Sommers is just... It's too much incompetence, right? Like... The fact that Oda keeps going back to the well over and over again, I'd say in the span of, like, Gabon took him out in chapter 1149, I want to say, and then I think, like, 10 chapters later, really one-shots him, and I feel like pretty soon we'll see Sanji beating him, so that would be in the span of, 30 chapters? I don't think any prominent subordinate antagonist has ever been defeated 3 straight times in the span of 30 chapters like that. Like, I just can't imagine Oda bringing him back. I think that, and I think Oda's trying to right now justify Sommers' removal in general, right? So it's like Sommers, 1, fucked up in the first place. Imu's mad at the Gods Knights for not getting the job done. Therefore, Imu has to come to Elbaf himself when there's an emergency going on at Marijua. Like, Imu's already very upset at all 3 Gods Knights that are here, right? Let's keep that in mind. He's pissed at all 3 Gods Knights that are here because he views them as having screwed up and forced Imu to come down to fight. Imu hasn't had to come down to fight, as far as we know, in 40 years. Not since God Valley. So this right now is a big screw up from his point of view for the Gods Knights, right? So that's number 1. So Sommers is already in red zone territory. It doesn't help that when Imu arrived, Sommers was the one Gods Knight that clearly had just had his ass handed to him, right, by Gabon, right? Killingham was doing his job, Gunko was doing her job, Sommers was the Gods Knight that Imu immediately sees, okay, you're fucking up, right? That's number 1. So Imu's really pissed at probably all the Gods Knights, but especially at Sommers already. And then Sommers immediately fucks up the next stage of the plan, which is getting the giant kids hostage. You know, and Sommers in his mind, he's like, well, it's the Great One's fault, right? Like, he's not stopping the arrows, right? So it's the Great One's fault. I don't think the Great One's going to see it that way. I don't think the Great One's going to be like, oh, you're right, Sommers, my bad. You're off the hook. You know, I don't know what the fuck he's thinking in his brain right now, but, so that's 2 fuck-ups, right? 2 major fuck-ups right off the bat, right? And then if Sanji comes through and beats him, like, you know, you guys know how baseball works. It's over, right? One Piece, One Life, thanks for the 5. Yo, Morge, wow, how we have Elbaf's 2 versions of the Sun God, creation and destruction coming together to protect. Yeah, I got a lot to say about this shit. Loki really is the... here's the thing. I don't think that Loki himself is being framed as the Sun God, and the thing is that the Sun God, like, Nika and the Sun God in general has always been referred to as, like, the white, laughing warrior of liberation, Nika, right? Jarl even explains explicitly that in every version of the story of Nika, the thing that's consistent in the story of the Sun God, the thing that's consistent is that he's this white warrior that's laughing, yada yada, right? So Loki isn't an alternate version of the Sun God or Nika as far as we know. Loki is his own thing. What that thing is has yet to be fully explained. It's a little complicated because the sun god has been referred to as both a liberator and a destroyer, right? But both of those things are in reference to Nika, not to this dragon thing that Loki is, right? So that's separate. And then the last part of it is that Loki calls himself the sun god, which is again confusing because he doesn't have the sun god fruit. So I think we need to break open the mythology of Nika a little bit more. Maybe the Viz translations will help, but it sounds like there's more to the Nika tale, and it sounds like Nika is usually accompanied by this sort of like dragon type beast or something. So it's a duo in actuality. But I don't think that necessarily means that Loki is an alternate version of the sun god, you know? Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. Let's get stream likes up to 100. Also, I'm going to give you guys a heads up. Probably in the next 5-10 minutes, I will have to get up for 20 seconds. Literally 20, maybe 30 seconds, and then I'll be back. So do not freak out. I will be back, all right? Just got to pull something out of... it doesn't matter. Okay. Continuing on. Obsidian Angel, thanks for the... Oh, no, we covered this. Justin, thanks for the 5. 1, is that as big as Luffy can get? 2, next chapter, it officially becomes personal for the Straughts after Luffy takes a moment to reassure the giant kids. So Loki... my favorite thing about this chapter was that it showed both of Oda's biggest strengths in I feel like this One Piece chapter just showcases almost all of Oda's strengths in one go. Because, sorry, let me answer what you're saying first, but then I'll get my thought off. Is that as big as Luffy can get? I think, like, Luffy could maybe get bigger. I mean, we don't know. Like, in theory, we're told that the Nika fruit is only bounded by one's imagination, but it has to have some level of limits, because if it was just bounded by one's imagination, then why wouldn't Luffy get even bigger every fight, right? Like, why didn't he get to Loki's size when he was fighting Kaido, so he could just grab Kaido and throw him into the sun or something, right? From what it appears, I feel like at the moment, there's 2 ways I view it, which is, 1, Luffy's already using the Nika fruit pretty much to the best of its ability, and it's his haki that he's really going to have to get up next. That's implied as much by Kaido's statement in their fight. That's implied by the Joy Boy haki feat, right? Like, Luffy's got the fruit. He seems very good at using the fruit. It's haki that to me, it seems like he needs to improve in. So by that logic, like, Bajrang Gun might be like close to as big as it gets for Luffy, right? The second line of thinking is that Luffy's likely going to improve in both the Devil Fruit and in haki considerably, in which case Bajrang Gun would not be the limit. I personally would not be surprised, the way that Oda writes, if, like, by the end of the story, Luffy's able to do something like Bajrang Gun Gatling, you know? I would not be surprised. And next chapter, it officially becomes personal for the Straughts. I don't know if it becomes, Oda seemed to have Photoshop, copy, and pasted a drawing of Luffy from earlier in the story into here. So I don't know 100%, but I would say this, that... just because Luffy's laughing right now, I don't know if it'll become personal, because I don't know if, like, the other Straughts are even really aware of, like, everything that almost just happened, you know? I think the Straughts are pissed enough already, but I mean, not pissed, but they're already got something to fight for, so I think that's fine. I don't know if we're going to see an angry or enraged Luffy next chapter. I feel like Oda's going for a more uplifting tone. And I think Oda might just let Loki cook for a little bit, because Loki even asks Luffy, like, hey, don't interfere in this battle, you know? Grizzly Adams 8277, thanks for the 2. Shanks versus Loki equals Gildarts versus Acnologia. Didn't Gildarts get, like, one-shotted right away by Acnologia? Like, it wasn't even close? Yeah, I don't know. We still don't know how that went down. I'm not even gonna think about... Okay, here's a simple way I would put it. There's a, like, if you were to get... I wish I could screen share right now. If I were to give my quick rankings for the way things are at the moment, right? Here's what I would say, okay? Oh, sorry, I gotta get up. I'll be back in 20 seconds. Nobody leave. I'll be back. Alexa, stop. All right, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, now we're good. Now we're good. Here, if I were to give my quick sort of mental ranking, right? Quick sort of mental ranking. Here's what I would say. And it shifted a lot over the course of this whole Elbaf arc. I think Elbaf has shaken things up for me in my head in terms of how strong characters are the most, right? Let's say Emu and Joyboy are at the top, right? Emu, Joyboy at the top. Joyboy, Emu probably in that order. Joyboy, then Emu. I feel like Loki might be third. Okay, no, let me clarify this. Joyboy, Emu, okay? Imagine this. Joyboy, Emu, I think Loki. Then you got this old gen group, which is all probably roughly comparable to one another. You got Rox, Harold, Prime Roger, Prime Whitebeard, Prime Garp, right? That sort of batch. Arrange them however you feel. Then I think you got Kaido right underneath them. Maybe Big Mom or someone trailing right underneath. Okay? So that's kind of my set. Okay? Then there's this other set of characters that are now nebulous for me. Okay? They can fall almost anywhere. And I'm talking Shanks, Mihawk, Dragon, this group of characters. I've decided I'm not even ranking these characters at this point because in the first group of characters that I listed, right, we've now seen a lot of what they can do. We've seen a lot of different points of comparison, right? Like, maybe we haven't seen all of them at their exact best, but Oda's not going to show us that, right? But now we've got some very clear ideas with them, right? It's this other group of characters, Dragon, who we've never seen fight, Shanks, who's got only aura farming moments, a ton of mystery, and and these statements and like vague claims that are just really crazy, like he beat Loki, his hockey's comparable to Joyboy, right? Like these vague ideas, right, which on paper are crazy, but we don't really have substance yet for him, right? And then Mihawk, obviously world's strongest swordsman title, right? So these three characters, I call them almost the East Blue legends, the East Blue trio, because they're the three legends in One Piece that Oda introduced first in the story at very pivotal points. Chapter 1 is Shanks, Chapter 50 is Mihawk, Chapter 100 is Dragon, right? And to date, they're still the three big, most mysterious heavy hitters in the story. So I'm leaving them off the list, okay? I think with the other characters, we've got a lot more to work with, and I feel good ranking them, right? So like to me, that's I feel like that's a reasonable sort of safe conservative viewpoint to have at the moment when it comes to all hierarchy stuff, right? So it's like, maybe Shanks ranks way up there, right above Loki, and in that case, what does that mean about Mihawk, right? And then how strong might Dragon be, But maybe the Shanks and Loki story is fake. Because as we've seen in Elbaf, most of the stories that we've been hearing so far about like how Rox versus Roger and Garp went down and like the Rox pirates versus the Roger pirates, that was fake, right? Loki murdered Harold to steal a fruit, that was fake, Gunko supposedly murdered her father. I have a feeling that's not true based on Gunko's backstories, right? So I'm not going to take that at its word, but it's obviously potentially true, in which case that means a lot for Shanks, Mihawk, probably Dragon as well, right? So I think I'm just going to stick to kind of ranking the people that we know of, that we've seen a lot of. And I think it's really interesting that in One Piece, it's kind of the reverse, where the older legends at this point are the ones that we've seen a lot more of than like the God Valley 6, right? The God Valley 6, we've seen so much of them. Kaido and Big Mom, we saw a shit ton of action from them. Roger and Whitebeard, we've seen a lot from them at this point. Rox, we've seen a good deal. Rox and Harold, right? It's, interestingly enough, the newer people, the ones that were introduced earliest in the story, Shanks, Dragon, Mihawk, right? They're the ones that Oda's playing close to his chest and not really showing us much of. I think that's very interesting. And I do think that the later in the story that, like, the character is, like, a top tier is really revealed to us, the higher potential they have to be higher up the hierarchy, right? I think Loki is a good example of that, Oda's gonna save the best for last, right? One Piece, One Life, thanks. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Taptio Treviso, thanks to the 2. Loki title is the old gen agenda slayer. Yeah, I think it's almost impossible to read the story right now, not just feel like Loki basically Like, we got this whole, because just look at the sequence of events that Oda laid out, right? He was very deliberate in the way that he did things, in that for so long, we were hyped up about this God Valley incident. Since back in chapter 957, Oda's been telling us about the God Valley incident, right? Since God Valley, Oda's been telling us about the, since 957, Oda's been telling us about the God Valley incident. And we got so excited for that, because we're like, oh my god, there's this guy named Rox. Remember, we didn't know who Rox was before. There's this guy named Rox, and all the Yonko that we know of today, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, all these crazy heavy hitters in the modern day, they were all serving under him. And then this guy fought Roger and Garp, like the greatest pirate and the greatest marine who teamed up together. Like the Roger pirate, like basically God Valley was pitched to us as the big throwdown where all the legends were, right? And that's essentially what we got. We got that crazy panel where it's like Rox, Roger, Whitebeard, Garp, Kaido, Big Mom, all of them teaming up together against Emu. And that was the big God Valley incident. Fuck, like Harold was thrown in the general mix as well, right? We got introduced to another guy who's on that level, right? So all this old legends, but the entire time that this backstory is happening, we keep getting told hints repeatedly that there's this dude Loki that's new, that's being introduced and written into the story, and he's a really big deal. He can end the world. And we're like, end the world, we don't know what that means. Look at these crazy legends, right? I think it's very deliberate by Oda to give us the entire God Valley flashback, show us all the old legends, and then conclude it with basically dropping a new gen character into the mix who just trumps all of that, right? Because Loki concludes the God Valley flashback essentially by defeating Amped Herald, which basically puts him theoretically greater than all those legends. And then if that was just a theory initially, now it's pretty much, now we see the full reveal of what Loki can do, and it's like, holy shit. So I think it was just very deliberate to give us all those, like showcase all those legends kind of on a silver platter for us, and then basically tell us at the end of all that like, but that's not that's not like the real showstopper I've got for you guys, right? If you thought those guys were cool, look at this shit, right? I just think that the narrative progression of that, of the lead up to Loki, basically is almost deliberate to make Loki look like the biggest deal in One Piece that kind of surpasses everything that we saw before with the old legends, you know? I just think it was an interesting sort of progression that Oda went with. Harold really would have destroyed the world if he ate the fruit. Yeah, but here's the crazy thing. Gaban said that from his opinion, and this is fucking Scopper Gaban, at that point in time, like the second most experienced pirate in the world, or like tied with Rayleigh as the most experienced and knowledgeable pirate in the world, right? Scopper Gaban thought that Harold, even without the fruit, would have destroyed the world. Gaban was literally like, yeah, if Harold got out of this castle, there's no one in the planet who could have stopped him, right? But Loki soloed it. Just pretty crazy. No wonder Oda had to nerf Loki. Yeah, and that's the very next comment. One Piece, One Life. Thanks for the 2. Keep in mind that what we see from Loki here is nerfed. Yeah, that's the coolest thing. Like, Oda does not want this character at full strength till the final war. He just doesn't want him at full strength till the final war, and we can obviously see why. JWP, thank you as usual, man. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 38 months. I always thought it was weird that Shamrock showed up and immediately left, but it makes sense because the other Gods Knights ain't making it off of Elbaf, lol. Yeah. I kept thinking Shamrock would come back, but it's like, he'd better stay away because he pissed off Loki at the beginning of the arc. Tapio Treviso, thanks for the 5. Yeah, and I do think that all 3 of the Gods Knights will be removed by the end of Elbaf. I think Killingham functionally cannot be around in the final war. His ability is just too good. There's too much emphasis in One Piece on the idea of resource building. So, like, a lot of story time and narrative focus goes into the idea of, like, what all of these various factions have to do to slowly build up their armies over time. Like, keep in mind, literally, I talked about this before, but we spent essentially 400 chapters on this plot line of stopping Kaido from continuing to build an army of Zoans. That's really what the crux of that plot line was. It started with Punk Hazard with, like, we gotta stop the manufacturer, right? because otherwise Kaido will get too many Zoans. And then they go to Doflamingo and they're like, now we gotta stop the supplier, the distributor, because he'll keep giving Kaido fucking Zoans. And then we get to fucking Wano and it's like, oh no, Kaido's got like 1 out of 10 of his subordinates is a gifter. Fuck, we're so fucked, right? 400 chapters spent on this plotline that is heavily focused around dealing with the problem of the smile fruits and being able to create a Zoan army. Fucking Zoan army that Kaido spent 20 years building is a joke compared to what Killingham can do in one afternoon, right? And it's not just Kaido's army. That applies to everyone, because the world government, they spent like fucking Vegapunk's research that he spent for like the last 20 years making these pacifistas, the ultimate weapon. Each one's the same value as a Navy battleship, right? And making the upgraded pacifistas. Oh no, pacifista is such a big deal. One MMA would fucking walk through like 50 pacifistas, right? Like Killingham's ability is it breaks a lot of the rules of One Piece and kind of the intrigue of what's happening in the story of like different factions having to spend resources to build their armies. Killingham, I feel like, was introduced into the Elbaf arc to serve a single purpose, which is that like we needed a like in a box instant army for the Elbaf giants to deal with, for Loki to flex on, yada yada. But you can't have that shit in the actual final war because it's just like, it's game break. It ruins a lot of the intricacy of what One Piece's sort of various strategies have been so far, you know? It's kind of like Killingham's ability is essentially like everyone's playing the game of Risk, and then it's like, but this one player, he can just like summon, 50 pieces out of the blue and just take over a continent in a single turn if he just feels like it, right? It's like, well, that's not fair. We're not going to play with that, So Killingham can't be, like, and you just look at the pattern. Gunko obviously set to be freed. Sommer's pretty much set to be eliminated, right? Therefore, one way or another, we can imagine Killingham, especially due to the nature of his ability, likely not going to make it to the final war. Tiptier Trevisa, thanks for the 5. I hope Loki's Zoan is the dragon that the Celestial Dragons LARP themselves as and not the Nidhogg, because Celestial Dragons are the Western dragons of One Piece's imagery. But aren't... So I don't know if it's going to be literally called... Here's my take, which is that I think that obviously people are trying to figure out, like, what is the fruit? I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it's a made-up name. Like, maybe it is... I think Nidhogg is likely, right? Like, because that's what we saw the children imagine. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Oda just makes up some other name for it, because, like, so far... like, Ragnar is now Mjolnir, Or, sorry, Mjolnir is now Ragnar. Like, Oda's playing with some of the ideas. It's not, like, an exact replication of the idea of Ratatoskr from Norse mythology. He just mixed that together with Mjolnir, and that's what we get. So, whatever creature Loki actually is, it might not literally be Nidhogg, but if it is going to be one exact specific Norse mythology fruit, then it would be, I assume, Nidhogg, A madman, thanks for the 2. Sommers is great. We need more villains like this. Sommers is fun. I like Sommers quite a bit. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Yeah, Sommers is fun. I definitely like Sommers. He's a fun One Piece villain. He's the type that you want to see get beaten up. He's sadistic. He's a little bit bumbling, but he's not that like, he's effective enough in spots. Like, we saw him take down Saul in a pretty brutal fashion. We saw him capture Robin. We see what the Thorns are doing to the kids and the Giants. So I like the line that's being played there. Bane566, thanks for the 2. Kaido got power clipped so badly it's hilarious. I think it's... I mean, you guys, like, I think I have prematurely in my mind... I'm not the best person to ask about this, because I've prematurely in my mind power clipped Kaido multiple times in recent arcs. And I think I've been wrong about that at least a couple times. Which is like, I made the argument that I thought that fucking Warkiri could be potentially as strong, if not stronger, than Kaido. Because I was just, like, viewing it as narrative role. I was like, the Gorosei, they're Imu's strongest subordinates. Wouldn't we kind of, like, wouldn't you want stronger endgame subordinates than, like, just endgame increasing the scaling, right? I no longer would confidently say that Warkiri is Kaido's level or even Yonko's level in general. Especially because we've learned... I mean, Warkiri's tricky because we saw that Luffy couldn't really damage him, but at the same time, now I'm like, did Luffy, like was Luffy even using Conquerors? Like, because it's such a question mark at this point in the story when certain characters are using Conqueror's Haki, it's a little vague. So yeah, for me, look, I prematurely probably like in my head power cliffed Kaido already at points that I probably shouldn't have, but I feel like with Loki, it's got to be really cut and dry at this point, because Loki is the problem with Loki versus Kaido is that it's just too exact of a comparison, right? It's kind of like the Jordan Kobe sort of comparison, because one's just, they're so fucking similar in their ability set. They're almost down to a T, identical in their ability set. It's just that one is clearly better in pretty much every single regard, right? So it's not really, and including feats, right? And including feats, because Kaido's feats aren't that impressive now, because it's kind of a joke at this point if you compare to fighting amped fucking Herald, you know? And just what Loki's doing this chapter alone, like soloing all the MMA basically in a single panel, which is fucking insane. I don't think Kaido can solo all the MMA in a single panel. I don't think most One Piece characters could do that, you know? Those are characters the size of mountains, bigger than mountains, you know? Yeah, just in general, like in terms of statements, feats, hype, and just like the main thing is their abilities are fucking like almost deliberately the same. Like, it's just crazy that Oda introduces Kaido's legend with Kaido falling from the sky, and that's a big sign of his durability. And it's just a clear one-up by Oda to have Loki's first iconic moment being replicating Kaido's introduction, but as a one-day-old infant, you know? And then from there on, you kind of just go up, and it's like, well, Kaido's like this freakish, big, monstrous, tough dude, but Loki's literally an ancient giant, right? Kaido's got, he's got this brutal, very powerful fighting style, right? Wielding this big club, but Loki's got a legendary weapon that on its own is arguably Yonko level. Kaido's got this monstrous dragon fruit. Loki's dragon fruit makes Kaido's dragon fruit look like a little worm, right? Kaido can control elements to some degree. Loki's got basically better abilities than all of the Logias combined. Legitimately. Like, the lightning fruit that Enel has, Loki is doing right now, passively, what Enel required fucking Maxim to do, right? Loki's just strictly better than the Gorogor to me. He is right now causing Elbaf to have a fucking snowstorm on, like, the largest island in the One Piece world, passively. Like, this isn't like he's, like, focusing some attack or something. Even Aokiji doesn't do that. Aokiji walking around doesn't turn the entire island into a snowy wonderland, you know? Like, Loki's just absurd at this point. Dare Boppler, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 14 months. After that arc, looking for the man with burn scar would be lame as fuck. Shanks will beat him off screen and show up in the end of Elbaf with the poneglyph. I don't know about that, but that is kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah, the thing I've said before is that Loki basically has a better version of Big Mom's fruit and a better version of Kaido's fruit combined. Because Ragnar, like, if you say Big Mom's fruit specialty is, like, crazy elemental abilities, it's like Ragnar is a way scaled up version of Big Mom's abilities. Big Mom cannot do anything close to what Ragnar does. And then Kaido's fruit, Loki's a clearly way scaled up, far more powerful, far more hyped devil fruit version of Kaido's fruit, you know? Bane566, yeah. I think that the man with the burn scars is still one of the most interesting mysteries in the story. I legitimately have no idea at this point who it could be. I think that's a really cool mystery that Oda just planted. I have no idea who it could be. Bane566, thanks to the 2. Thoughts on possible Luffy versus Dami Reversied Loki now? Let's be very clear here. If Loki was Dami Reversied, the entire world genuinely ends. There's not a chance in hell. Maybe I'm overestimating Loki, and maybe I'm underestimating Luffy, because maybe that's the direction we go. But let me just call it at face value. If Loki got Dami Reversied, wouldn't the world just end? Like, wouldn't the entire planet be fucked? Would Imu even need any other soldiers? Can't Loki just go around like destroying island after island? What would anyone do? Even if you think Shanks did stop Loki, I'm sure it wasn't easy. I don't think Shanks is beating Dami reversing Loki. Eric, thanks for the 2. Oda wouldn't fraud Shanks. Stop it, lol. I mean, I don't think that's frauding Shanks. I don't think, like, I'm not saying Shanks, like, cheated or something. I'm saying that there might be more to the story, right? Like, maybe it wasn't Shanks versus Loki or something that happened. Maybe they fucking teamed up to do something, and then Emu took down Loki for all we know. I mean, that's unlikely. I think Loki doesn't talk like that, but I'm just saying the idea that, like, from what we saw last, Shanks and Loki aren't even enemies when they left. The castle, they were on very good terms. So I just don't know what exactly happened in that story. You know? And we also, like, there's things that we don't know. Oda chose not to show that part of the narrative to us. I'm not saying that Shanks didn't beat Loki. I'm just saying that I'm not going to scale any of these 3 characters, Shanks, Mihawk, or Dragon, till we get some more details, because it's just impossible to decipher. The only thing I'm pointing out is that you can't, like, the one thing that's been consistent is that just because we're told that something happened in the past does not mean it actually did. Sometimes it means that's the case, but a lot of times it's not. So until we actually get the details of that, I'm not gonna make any assumptions. But I like, Shanks is probably Oda's favorite character outside of Luffy. I don't think Oda's ever gonna make Shanks look bad, right? So I'm just trying to not make any assumptions about that scenario, right? I'm just gonna work with what we know, simply because our knowledge, like, the things that we assumed are true have been flipped on their head like 5 times this arc. That's all. So I'm just gonna work with what's been established for certain for the moment. I'll be right back in a second. Duck20, thanks for the 2. The Harley mural shows a big ass dragon. I have no comment on that at the moment. I think a shit ton of stuff just clicked into place. Tier Treviso, thanks for the 2. Only Shanks could beat Loki. Gaban's words paraphrased. Look, maybe Shanks did beat Loki. I fully think that that's 100% in the realm of possibility. I am just not going to I am not going to make any assumptions until we see any further. That's all I'm saying. Okay? It's not to discredit Shanks or anything like that. It's just, I'm going to be honest, in the Elbaf arc, I think most people would agree, the Elbaf arc has flipped people's power scaling assumptions at a faster pace than any other One Piece arc, right? Like, if you went back in time to tell readers that in that like 50 chapters ago, that Prime Roger, Prime Whitebeard, right, those 2 characters aren't even going to be like, maybe even like top 5 in the story, basically, from like past existing characters, people would have been like, what the fuck, you know? Because people would always give you like Joy Boy and Emu, but beyond that, it was like Prime Roger and Prime Whitebeard were considered kind of the holy standard or whatever, right? Now it's just totally different. It's like, who's stronger? It's like, some giants from fucking Elbaf. It's like, Elbaf, the guys that got fucked up by 5-year-old Big Mom. It's like, just, it's a long story. Just, you know what I mean? Like, it's too many things that have been flipped. It's like, okay, Rocks. Okay, now fucking Harold. Okay, now Loki's as strong as, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's too many things. So I'm just gonna let what we know ride. and I'll figure out Shanks, Mihawk, Dragon on a separate date. Julian Reed, thanks for the 5. Imagine Katakuri got Kaido's fruit and Chiffon said yes to Loki's proposal. Big Mom Loki could have ruled the entire New World if everything played out her way. That's true. Yeah, like poor Big Mom. Poor Big Mom. She has some very good ideas that just don't fully pan out. I think that's a better shot than Kaido if Kaido got his 100% Zoan army. I just don't think... I can't believe he was looking at his fucking giraffe subordinate and was like, yes, if I have like 1,000 of you, the world is mine. I think Kaido might have been a little bit off there. Meek, thanks for the 5, man. Loki, it's Emu upscale if Emu can fight off Loki and Luffy. Ironically, side note, how did Dragon Loki even fit in the castle? Yeah, maybe Loki was in hybrid form when we saw him. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe Loki was in hybrid form. And yeah, of course, it's definitely Emu upscale if Emu can fight off Loki and Luffy. I think that's the crazy thing. That before, the fact that we saw 6 legends fight Emu at once and not scratch him, that was like, okay, that's like the craziest upscale in the story. But now I'm thinking like, the real test I would love to see is like, how does Loki do, or how does Emu do against Loki? You know? I'm sure Emu's stronger than Loki, but to me, that's more of the, like, to me, that's even more of a cool perspective matchup, you know? Again, Loki is nerfed right now, though. He's going to be nerfed for the rest of the arc, so we got to keep that in mind. Let's get stream likes up to 150 real quick. So even if full-strength Loki has a shot against Emu, he wouldn't be able to do it this arc. It's kind of like, if you think back, like Zoro and Arlong, way back when. That was kind of an interesting little question that was posed back then, which is, you know, could Zoro have had a good shot at beating Arlong back then if Zoro wasn't literally like on the brink of death, right? Loki, keep in mind, has been established earlier in this, like basically an hour ago, he was on the brink of death. That's outright stated, actually by Zoro. Like he's on death's door, right? So Loki, nowhere near his full strength. But again, like in the Arlong Park, it was kind of like an interesting what if. Like, what if Zoro's at full strength? Would Luffy be needed, or could Zoro just handle Arlong, right? Arlong himself was kind of concerned. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the long time support, man. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 30 months. I hope you enjoyed the Pirate King podcast that just came out. In just one panel, Loki snatched the chains of every Straw Hat, Kid, Kaido, and even Mihawk. I can't even imagine Loki not surpassing everyone, including Straw Hats, except Luffy in narrative importance at this point. That's the one thing I'm really worried about, which is like, I don't want Loki to just be more important than all the Straw Hats now, you know? Like, I don't know. And I feel like Oda could go that direction. Like, Loki's the first character that I'm legitimately a little bit concerned that Oda could go the direction of, like, the Luffy-Loki show for the final war. I've never had that concern. Back when Law was around, I was just like, this character's a fucking joke. Get him the fuck out of here. Doesn't even have Conqueror's Haki. He's a bum, all right? I knew from the get-go with Law. That's why I was just like, why are we wasting so much fucking time on this dude that is clearly not going to be equal to Luffy in the long run, and he's definitely not equal to Zoro. I was just so confused. I was like, why are we treating this bum like he's the main character, right? For 150 chapters, right? Then Wano hits. I had high hopes for Kid, but at no point did I think that Kid is going to upstage Luffy. If anything, I was like, okay, please, Kid, do something to indicate that you are a worthy rival to Luffy. At no point was I actually worried that Kid and Law are going to upstage, like, Zoro or even Zoro and Sanji. I mean, like, you just read the rooftop, and it's like, okay, Oda gathered everyone there. Clearly, Luffy and Zoro are more important, stronger, etc. than Law and Kid, right? No debate if you read the rooftop with any objectivity, right? Oda did not take the spotlight. He didn't even have Law and Kid beat Big Mom. He basically had them, like, accidentally survive the fight against Big Mom, right? So, basically, at no point in the story have I felt like actually a character is legitimately going to overtake. That's why I think it's funny. People are like, Sabo's going to be a huge deal. He's going to be stronger than Zoro and Sanji end of story. It's like, Sabo's not even he's fucking Luffy's, he's the Timu ace, the backup brother that Oda pulled out of his ass, most likely for Luffy to save his ass down the line, right? He doesn't have Conqueror's Haki. He's not ace. He's budget ace, right? Zoro and Sanji are obviously going to be more important. The Strats are obviously going to be more important, right? I'm not worried about these characters. Sabo, Yamato, even Kobe, like, you know, these are, they're going to be important characters, but not Not more important than the Strahds. Loki's the first dude I'm like, shit. I hope Oda doesn't forget about the Straw Hats. It was a good run for Zoro. I don't know. Meek, thanks for the 5. Least/most favorite part of the chapter? Most favorite part was, of course, Loki's big debut at the end. But the big thing, like, why I love this chapter is from start to finish, I thought it's just a great chapter. I think if Oda hadn't included the Loki stuff at the end, I would have still considered this like a 9 out of 10 chapter, because I actually thought the storytelling at the beginning of this chapter is really good. It's phenomenal. It's some of the best stuff that Oda's done for like very minor side characters that have been littered throughout the arc, right? I love that scene. That's a really good, no joke, when Roto fucking came through to help his brother who doesn't even like or respect him, I'm not kidding, I actually started to, like, I that was what really tipped me over and really made me feel the emotions of the scene. And I actually was like, okay, I might actually tear up reading this, which I would never have thought. And then I kind of, it was weird, I like mentally corrected myself. I was like, no, this is just Roto. This is not, I stopped myself from like getting too emotionally invested, but I did actually feel that. I thought that was a great scene. Schedules have been mixed up a little bit, so the chapter review is actually going to be coming out on Sunday, and then the big video is going to be coming out tomorrow. But you will see in my chapter review, one of the big things that I talk about that I think is so beautiful about the scene that just happened is that, like, it's not just that the giants, like, were trying to sacrifice their lives to help their kids who they loved, right? It wasn't just that. It was the fact that the giants actually could not help the kids. There was nothing that they could, like, they were sacrificing their lives not to save the kids, right? It wasn't like, because everyone's seen that before, right? That's really good dramatic storytelling. Parents sacrificing their life to save the child. That happens a lot in One Piece itself, right? But this was like something even more just sad and beautiful and poetic and like just really, really deep cut coming from the giants, which is just, they couldn't save the kids. They were ready to sacrifice their lives and toss themselves over the cliff just so that their children didn't have to die alone. That is insane. Like, that's so beautiful. That's like really, really beautiful storytelling. I think Oda created a really, really amazing scenario just to evoke that sort of emotion for just random giants. You know, I really, really love that whole scene. And the coolest thing, I don't know if people talk about this, but I talk about it in my upcoming chapter review. Oda modeled a lot of the individual giant kids off of the Straw Hats. And I think that's one of the coolest things. You got a giant kid who struggles with lying. You've got a giant kid who doesn't understand the value of food, wants to waste food. You've got a giant kid who's obsessed with swords. You've got a giant kid who's a punk. He's like really smart, does his homework, but he wants to act like a bad boy kid, right? You know who I'm talking about in each of these scenarios. You've got a giant girl who says, "You're not my real mom," yada yada, but then is at the end like, "Miss Angie, Miss Bellamere," right? "You are my mom. I love you like my mom," right? It's so many callbacks to what the Straw Hats themselves are, and the beauty of it is that the Straw Hats, they all had to grow up without these loved one figures, right? They had to grow up without them. They lost all of them. It's just such a cool little idea for Oda to give us this little image of all those, of all these versions of the Straw Hats as little kids, but they have their loved one figures that just stay with them in a sense, that they stay with them right up to the brink of death and are willing to cross over to the other side with them. I think that was a really, really cool idea. I think that's an idea that's going to get kind of lost in the sauce just because the Loki hype stuff. But it's beautiful writing. Like, it's genuinely one of the coolest things that Oda's done in the Elbaf arc. I feel like it would have gotten more emphasis if you didn't also put the Loki stuff in, but it just makes for an easy 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 chapter. Proof Oda hasn't forgotten the Straw Hats. I don't think Oda's forgotten the Straw Hats because I think he's been doing a great job giving the Straw Hats the main share of the focus, the character writing focus in the Elbaf arc. This chapter was the first chapter that we got some moments for like actual deep character moments for a bunch of these side characters. I guess you could argue Ranya's moment way back when. I didn't give a fuck about Ranya's moment when it first happened. Now I like Ranya. Like, I just need a little bit of time to care about certain characters. I was just like, who the fuck is this kid, right? I care when Roto has a moment of character development because I've seen Roto already, right? But generally speaking, the Strides have been at the forefront of the story. There's only been one character in Elbaf who's been elevated to main character status, which is Loki. That is a million times better than past arcs like fucking Wano, Dressrosa, Egghead Island, where basically the Strats are just like tier 3 characters, and any fucking side character that shows up in the arc is immediately more important than them. I love this chapter though. Taptir Trevisa thanks to 2. Killingham plus Gunko Emu. How many Yonko to beat them? I don't even know if it's like a quantity thing, because it's like, I don't know if it's a quantity thing. It might be more of a quality thing, you know? Like, I think you might just need hockey at a certain level to do it. So I don't have a good number. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Sniper Gansunku, thanks for the 5. Imagine how Loki's hybrid form looks. Final Saga Oda is cooking. Yeah, here's the thing. There's one little catch to this, which is that I remember Kaido's dragon form reveal was probably so like, how do I say this? I think one of maybe the best character introduction in One Piece is probably Kaido's introduction, right? I think maybe the coolest Zoan reveal in One Piece is probably Kaido's Zoan introduction, right? It feels silly now because Loki's so much bigger, but there is some merit to being first. I think that creates more of a memory, right? So like just seeing the dragon that size back then, and it was like, that's Kaido, that was mind-blowing. Now it feels like so insignificant, but at the time, right, it's what the impact at the time, right? So Kaido's own design reveal, amazing, right? Kaido's dragon form reveal, amazing. I think Kaido's hybrid form was the hybrid form looks cool, but it's not really an iconic moment, right? I think it just, people are like, oh, this chapter we got Kaido's hybrid form, and it's kind of what you expect. So I think I hope Loki's hybrid form looks really cool, but I wouldn't be surprised if the hybrid form is like a pretty straightforward design that you might expect. I would love to be wrong, but I'm just remembering basically like, it's kind of like it's similar, right? Like Kaido's initial introduction, very similar to Loki's initial introduction, right? People have talked about the two parallels right there. Kaido amazing design, Loki amazing design. Kaido dragon form reveal, super hype, iconic moment in One Piece. Loki dragon form reveal, we're getting that right now, mind-blowing, really big. Kaido hybrid form, Oda kind of just tossed it in. Like, he didn't make a huge thing out of it, and everyone was like, okay, now we're seeing Kaido's hybrid form. So, yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if Loki's hybrid form is going to, like, blow our minds or something like that. I think this could be the peak of cool for Loki's Devil Fruit reveal stuff. What we can expect is that the hybrid form should be the strongest, because consistently throughout One Piece, without fail, the hybrid form is the best fighting form. Interestingly, the full Zoan form is pretty much always the worst form, even when it comes to really powerful fruits. Because, like, if you guys remember, when Kaido was first introduced in his dragon form, go back and look at reader reactions to that moment. Everyone was just like, what the fuck? Like, how do you even fight something like this? This is huge. How does anybody fight something like this? Everyone was like, Kaido, insanely powerful, right? Then the next chapter came, and Luffy did fine against the dragon form. He didn't have trouble against the dragon form. Like, it was fine. Then Kaido switched back to human form and fucked up Luffy, right? And then slowly we began to realize that this is a consistent trend. The Scabbards fought Kaido. The Scabbards actually did fine against Kaido's dragon form. He went human form and then fucked them up, right? The rooftop battle. Kaido starts in dragon form. They're kind of fucking Kaido up, like the supernovas. Kaido has to go human form to make it more competitive, and then hybrid form is the best form, right? Like, it's kind of just like, even if the creature itself is very powerful, ultimately being in, like, a physical, like a human, like your natural fighting form is better, and then the hybrid form is the best. Like, this goes all the way back to, like, Rob Lucci. Like, turning into a leopard's cool, but just fighting as a leopard kind of sacrifices all your Rokushiki abilities and everything. So, like, the moment that that Lucci turned into a leopard and just, like, bit Luffy once, that was, like, a funny moment, but it was, like, Yeah, what are you doing, man? Get back into your human form or hybrid form, right? So I think for every Zoan throughout the series, it's been Zoan form is like pure Zoan is the worst, human form is the second level, and then hybrid form is the best. I always thought that was very funny with Kaido's fighting style, that he would like often like you're starting as a human, but he would often transform. He would do it backward. He would transform into a dragon, so he would like depower himself, get fucked up a bit, and then work his way back up, then go back to human form, and then get the hybrid form. It's like, dude, stop. What are you doing? I'd say the one exception is Marco. Marco, I think his full Zoan form is always good. Marco's the one dude who were like, dude, can you even fight in your human form? We don't actually have proof of it, you know? I'm sure he can. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. Justin, thanks for the 5. Scary thought. What if this Holy Knight / Mark Bearer replacement is how certain villains can regain focus in the war, like Big Mom and Kaido, as you once predicted? Oh, like bringing them back? I just don't know if Oda's even going to bother bringing Big Mom and Kaido back at this point. I think that could be cool. I don't know if Big Mom and Kaido would ever obey Imu like that, you know? I mean, I guess they'd be forced, but I feel like I hope Oda won't drag their character through the mud by just making them puppets later, but it could happen. Meek, thanks for the 2. Check out 1128 color spread. Enough said. Is that the one that people are referencing, which has the dragon in the front? Look, I'm of the opinion that I don't think Oda really does foreshadowing in color spreads, personally. I think that sometimes it's... The simple way I can put it is that there's like so many chapters in One Piece and so many spreads that at some point things will just line up. I still remember this was a very popular theory when Jack returned to Zou. A lot of people were like, Zoro is gonna fight Jack. Why? Because like in chapter like 300, like some chapter way back, there was a color spread that happened to have a mammoth, and Luffy was pointing at the mammoth, and it looked like Zoro was looking at the mammoth. So people were like, look, this is proof that Oda foreshadowed that Luffy in the future will want Zoro to go fight Jack. And I was one of the people that actually used to buy those sort of things, but I've been in the community long enough that I've seen like over and over again. I cannot think of a single time, like, there's just too many color spreads. There's too many color spreads, too many random things that happen in the story. And, like, at some point, some things might feel coincidentally lining up, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything, you know? I mean, like, we got the dragon in this color spread, but then, I mean, is that different than getting a dragon in Punk Hazard? Like, why is this more significant than that? It's purple, so I get people saying that this represents Loki's color, but I'm just saying that at this point in One Piece, we're so deep in, I'm always going to be skeptical that a color spread actually foreshadows something, because I think we're like 0 for 100 as far as I can tell in terms of like a color spread theory actually panning out. JWP, thanks for the 10-man. Ragnar is probably top 10 in the verse by itself. Enma forcibly drawing out your haki makes your attack stronger. I'm going to be annoyed if Yoru's ability is being sharp and durable. It has to do something. I just don't think... I think Yoru is just a really strong sword. Like, I think it's just a physically really tough sword. I think there's a big gap between, like, just swords that are ultimately swords and don't have, like, special devil fruit powers versus Ragnar, which is a devil fruit power. I'm never going to scale Ragnar. I'm not interested in scaling Ragnar. I think maybe we'll get a better idea of just how strong Ragnar is at some point down the line, but I'm not going to fucking scale, like, a talking hammer squirrel that most likely will only ever be shown being used by Loki. Eric, thanks for the 2-man. I get why Big Mom was so mad at Lola. It's deserved. It's like, you can't do one thing for your mama? You can't do this one thing for your mama? Like, you can divorce him later. You know how long it would take us to defeat all the Yonko and become Pirate King? Like, 4 months? You know? Like, if Akainu could supposedly get to One Piece in, like, less than a year, then fuck, Lola would only have to marry Loki for, like, maybe a couple weeks. You know? Like, just do it. Just suck it up and do it for, like, a little bit. You can divorce him after that, you know? Uh, Morge sold me Fent. Thanks for the 2. Ripley scene was beautiful. Reminded me of Bellemere. Yeah, I guess the Ripley... To me, the Ange scene is reminiscent of Bellemere, but I think in general, there's multiple... There's so many just parental callbacks that are happening right here. I think just the first half of the chapter... That's the thing. I think the first half of the chapter is already 10 out of 10 Oda writing. It's just naturally the hype stuff is going to draw more attention. But the first half of the chapter is also really, really, really great. To me, this was like Oda clicking on all accounts. The first half of the chapter is literally like Oda's masterful emotional storytelling, pulling it out for random minor side characters who before we maybe didn't feel that much attachment to, but now we can really appreciate their strength of character, right? So you got that. And then on top of that, you've got the crazy hype stuff with like Loki's reveal, the lightning, the snow, destroying all the MMAs, all of that stuff. Crazy, crazy hype. That's another One Piece special. And then just how all of this plays into the lore of the Nika the Sun God and the new revelations. That's another aspect of One Piece's like really like greatest strengths, you know? So I think this is just like a classic all-time like a classic example of why Oda is such a great writer. Tier Treviso, thanks for the 2. Big Mom wanting Lola to marry Loki makes 100% sense. Yeah, fuck. I don't know why Kaido wasn't on that. Like, fucking send Yamato. Like, everyone should be shipping off their sons, daughters, etc. to Loki, you know? Like, just send whoever you got. Ajay05, thanks for the 2. Do you still think Blackbeard gonna take Loki's fruit? Hope not. If Blackbeard kills Loki, I will legitimately be so much more angry than the whole Ace situation. Ace, I think, I was sad when Ace died, but there was so much build-up to it that it was always in, like, the ether, like, as a possibility. If Blackbeard kills Loki, who is now my favorite side character in the story, I'll be very, very upset. I will hate Blackbeard, and I will hate Oda. I won't hate Oda, but you know what I mean. Zolden, thanks for the 2. Did you watch the new live-action One Piece trailer? It looks great. I'm very excited for the new live-action One Piece season 2. I think they've got some really big set pieces. I think that it's got that Grand Line adventure vibe really going for it. I think this will introduce people to the fantastic elements of the One Piece world. My only thing is, I feel like the area where I feel like the trailer, not the season, the trailer might have failed is, I think generally for anything you want to... I don't think that there was anything, like any conflict that was displayed in the trailer that you get someone excited for. And that's simply because they've paced it out such that Alabasta won't happen till next season. So it's not like you can tease Crocodile. Like, that's one of the best things that you could do to hype up this season, which would be teasing like a really powerful villain that's coming up around the corner or something like that, right? If I'm watching this blind and I know nothing about One Piece, I'm basically seeing the Straw Hats fight like a bunch of like gag characters is what it looks like. Like, nobody in there looks powerful, intimidating. Like, at least season 1, you had characters like Arlong that in a trailer look intimidating, right? So I think the strength of the trailer was showcasing like the fantasy elements, like you get some glimpses of dinosaurs and giants and stuff like that. It doesn't sell you on a plot that is going to be very high stakes and interesting. This is all just me critiquing the trailer because I already believe the season's going to be really good. I'm now viewing it more so from a pure marketing perspective. I'm like, how many normies is this going to draw in? I think it will. I think it will be successful. I think it'll continue to expand the One Piece following, but that's my only view on the trailer, which is like, I think if I was the average person, I might feel like it's not clear what a bigger plot might be emerging, you know? Keo Beats, thanks for the 5. Look at Loki's eyes, same as Big Mom and Rox's soul manipulation abilities. That's how he hurts Harold. Yeah, maybe. I just wonder if like Oda just drew him like that because it's badass. I don't know. Random Guy, thanks for the 5. Elbaf arc is giving the most significant emphasis on family. Yeah, I think so. Fatherhood is a huge theme of this arc, but also you're right. Family is a big developing theme because, like, you look at Loki's upbringing and he had to find a mother, right? Ida, because his own mother hated him, which is kind of crazy. Like, Loki's such a badass, but you know, I do agree. Also, yeah, I agree. Sean Easton, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 33 months, man. The streets are saying that Loki will be facing the Red Line itself in the final war. Nice hoodie, BTW. Wherever may I purchase such drip? Oh, man, are people already saying that? I have no comment. Just watch out for tomorrow's video, okay? I have no comment. If you're interested in this hoodie, and an amazing deal on similar hoodies. I wish I could share screen right now, but I cannot. We've got an absurd deal going right now for these hoodies. It's buy two, get one free. So you can have the full Admiral set, and each hoodie is $80 off, and that's all just for this month. I am fucking serious. We are only doing this deal for this month. It's buy two, get one, $80 off per hoodie this month. Next month, hoodie season. You can still get them, but the deals are gone. Hoodie season over. That is absolutely... And to be very clear, like, with posters and stuff based on popular demand, sometimes, like, we can... Like, if we're running a deal for some period of time, we can extend it a little bit. Like you saw from December to January, we extended it slightly. Hoodies, it's a totally different production line. There's a lot more steps to getting these things made. So after this month, the hoodies, get them now while you can, all right? If you want your ice hoodie, if you want your magma hoodie, if you want your light hoodie, if you want all three of them, you can do the buy two, get one deal. Go get them right now. I'm dropping the link right there. JWP, thanks for the 5. With what we've seen from Emu, Loki, and the old gen in the Rocks flashback, Blackbeard's looking real weak right now. Needs a hockey boost, awaken his Devil Fruit, and get a third. I'm trying to think, even if Blackbeard got Loki's fruit, right? I'm just like, what the fuck would Blackbeard even do? Even if he got Loki's fruit, I feel like Loki with his fruit would still be stronger than Blackbeard getting this fruit, right? Because Loki's got Ragnar and Crazy Hockey and the strongest body, physical body, out of any One Piece character. Like, put it this way, in my opinion right now, like, I don't think this is controversial. Loki just straight, like, you take away the fruit, take away Ragnar, just straight fisticuffs, he would beat the shit out of Blackbeard. Because I think just base Loki is similar to, like, base Kaido, base Big Mom, you know? And, you know, physical freaks of nature, advanced Conqueror's Hockey users, yada yada. I think most people would agree that base Kaido would beat the shit out of Blackbeard, right? So I don't know what Oda's gonna do to make Blackbeard, you know, final villain material. I really don't know. I think Blackbeard might need to get Emu's fruit, but even then, I'm just like, it just feels like even the, like, I used to feel like, okay, well, Blackbeard's abilities are broken, right? Like, even if Blackbeard himself has not been shown to be a crazy hockey monster, his abilities are like, you know, the Yami Yami no Mi, like cancel out all other Devil Fruit abilities, the Gura Gura no Mi, like, for its time, it felt like the strongest, like, offensively strongest fruit. Now it feels like that stuff has been power creep. Like, even the character who relied exclusively on abilities, his abilities have been power creeped, right? Because I look at Loki's two fruits, I think they're better than Blackbeard's two fruits. And Loki himself is 100% a better fighter than Blackbeard, right? Like, if you remove the abilities from the equation, I don't know. Like, a third fruit. I think the other part is that I do think there's a strong possibility that Blackbeard does still have, like, another personality or something hidden in him. We just know that it's not rocks at this point. But I do think that there's a possibility that Blackbeard does have some other personality in him. I think that could be the big twist. Because we know the Blackbeard never sleeps thing. We know that there's something special about him that allows him to eat multiple fruits. So I think the potential is still there. Talha, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 21 months. The arc started with UKL theories. And now it's full prayer mode, being Usopp at least gets Killingham. I'm 100% convinced Killingham's a Zoro opponent. I'm still leaning towards Zoro versus Dory and Brogy. And then I feel like Usopp killing him. I'm betting on it. Or we could see an Usopp and Zoro team up against Killingham. I think that would be cool. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 because we're almost there. JP, thank you for the 20. I see Oda's vision now. He always intended to have Nidhogg and Jormungandr myths tied together. Oh, man, I'm not going to comment on this just because tomorrow's video, but I'll read out your comment. The god of destruction, together with the serpent of hellfire, cast the first world into abyss. Glad that part of the mural is clear. No comment. But you're a wise man, JP. Anime Dimension, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 39 months. I think we can rule out Loki becoming Dami or fighting Luffy now, since Elbaf would be leveled to the sea. I think that even if you think somehow Luffy can fight Loki, I just think the island would be destroyed. Everybody else would die, right? If Imu gained Dami Loki, he would use him to eliminate Nika here. Yeah, because, I mean, like, people already felt, like, Gaban felt that Dami reversing Herald would basically was too strong, or, you know what I mean, like, God's Knight's Herald, right? Imu controlled Herald, like, Imu amped Herald. Gaban felt that there's nobody in the world that can stop him. The entire world would be left to ruin. Loki was already as strong as that, and now if you give Loki an amp on top of that, I just don't know what happens, right? Isn't it all over? Tiptio Treviso, thanks for the 2. Kaido's hybrid was overhyped before reveal. I think there were some fan drawings of Kaido's hybrid that were cooler than Kaido's actual hybrid. I personally didn't care that Kaido's hybrid form didn't look... It looks cool. It looks cool, right? I think a lot of us were expecting... Like, it's just fan art was even cooler. And a lot of... Like, because Kaido... It's because Oda set the bar so high. Because he did such a phenomenal job with Kaido's original design, right? His human design. And then the dragon design was just, like, mind-blowing. So I think the hybrid design... which is like his main fighting form, I think people are just like, what's this going to look like? And it looked basically like what you would expect, right? Oda didn't like go out of the box with it, which is not bad, right? I'm not critiquing that. It's just, it didn't like, it wasn't like a showstopper, right? Now, I personally didn't mind because I was like, I still think Kaido's got Awakening, and I assumed that Kaido's awakened form would look really, really cool. Kaido never awakened, so... And now we've learned since then that awakened Zoan forms, actually all they get is like little clouds coming around them. So there's nothing, it would have been basically the same. JP, thanks for the 5. It's kind of poetic that the baby that fell alone is now able to save both mothers and children falling together. Oh my god, that's a great point. Everyone shouts to, yeah, what a great line from JP. That's a great point, JP. I did not even think of that. Phenomenal stuff, man. Meek, thanks for the 5. This chapter's emotion is greater than all of Wano's writing. Shit, even all of post-time skip. I'm not going to go that far. I think post-time skip has had plenty of really emotional moments. I'd even go back to Egghead and say that. But I would say that I don't think that, to me, I don't think that Wano had any strong emotional moments. I think Yasue wasn't bad. I think Yasue's death wasn't bad. I think it was solid, kinda. Solid, kinda is how I'd put it. I guess I just thought Yasue's death was a solid side character death. But my assumption was that it was just like a little teaser for like some really hard-hitting emotional stuff later. So in my mind, it was like, man, if Oda is giving us like character deaths already in the story, like what's he gonna do down the line? Like, I didn't really care about Yasuo's death that much, but I was like, okay, this is like a good little appetizer. But now in retrospect, I'm like, oh, so that was like the emotional peak of the entire story. I don't know. Perturbed, thanks for the 2. Look at chapter 310 color spread, foreshadowing. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if Oda even had Odin as a character planned in mind at that point in time. Because remember, what do you call? Back then, Oda just told us that Roger was able to read the poneglyphs. right? So I think Oda came up with a lot of the concepts of the Wano arc much later. If you're saying that, well, there's a pink dragon here, again, I would say maybe this instance, because it is very specific, right? It's a pink Asian dragon, specifically, pink Eastern dragon, specifically in a color spread where the Straw Hats are all in Japanese outfits, right? And even the background art is like classical Japanese background art, right? So I would say here maybe there's an argument. Maybe this is like one case of actual foreshadowing. But at the same time, my other thought is like, One Piece is so absurdly long and it covers like so many different things, right? Like it covers desert, sky, it has like angel figures, it has like Halloween stuff in Thriller Bark, like covers Disney stuff, covers Power Rangers, like it covers so much that I'm never gonna confidently say that a color spread, which is just Oda letting his imagination go wild, is like foreshadowing something that comes much later. But I'd say that this is the one example I would say that I think is like the closest, like it feels like it would have to be a very big coincidence, or Oda retroactively decided to make Momonosuke that color. But I think this is I think this is a very good argument. I would say that this one is the first good argument I've ever seen of a color spread potentially foreshadowing something later in the story. I still think it's generally far more likely than not that a color spread doesn't foreshadow anything, and that most things that people see end up being coincidental. But this is a very good counter argument. So I don't know. Maybe that is Loki's color, the dragon color. Prince 1 million Prime, thanks for the 5. If you have a kid, little sibling, or little one you're fond of, this chapter hits different, makes you contemplate if love is the strongest thing. That's very sweet. I like that line. Yeah, I just think this is a very emotionally hard-hitting chapter. And we know that Oda has... something interesting that Oda said in interviews is that, like, he used to not feel confident writing parent-child relationships until he had a daughter himself, and now he feels like he's very like he feels drawn to those type of storylines. So that's why you see things more frequently, particularly father-daughter stuff, like Kiros and Rebecca, and of course Kuma and Bonnie, right? But I always thought that was a strange quote by Oda, because if you go back to like I think that Oda did write really good parent-child relationships even back then, but maybe he just felt, I don't know what really made him feel like he wasn't good at it or comfortable with it back then, but I think he's always been good at it. But main thing being, like, I do think that probably a lot of Oda's parental feelings were at play here when he was writing this chapter, you know? Josie Dirts, thanks for the 5. Good point on trailer. Maybe for normies, One Piece live action could have shown silhouettes of dragon. Might have thought he's a villain, but later find out he's Luffy's pops. Yeah, I think that's what I'm surprised about. Like, why not tease a little bit of the classically hyped stuff, you know? Like, you could have shown a silhouette of dragon. I know they've already cast Ace, so you could have shown, like, just a glimpse of Ace. I was just especially surprised because I would say, like, the coolest character that we were shown in the trailer was Smoker, right? Pre-time skip, during that era, Smoker was a pretty cool, badass character, very powerful relative to the main characters, very dangerous ability. There's one quick glimpse of Smoker. I figure Smoker would be almost like one of the highlights that they would want to play up for this season, you know? Because that is a pretty, like, Smoker chasing Luffy is one of the best B plots that we have in One Piece, you know? Like, from island to island. Normally, that's not really a thing. One Piece has, of course, a ton of different plot threads rolling, but when I say a B plot, I'm saying, like, the Straw Hats are headed towards a certain goal, a certain island, and then you've got a separate group that's attached to the Straw Hats storyline, if that makes sense. That's usually not really the case. You have characters like Law that literally join the crew, or Momonosuke that, like, sails with them for a while, but the Smoker B plot was always one of the more interesting things that took place over the Baroque Works saga, and we don't really get that quite as much later on in pre-time skip. So yeah, I'm just surprised. Like, I think for the trailer, they decided to really emphasize The grand set pieces, I think that's maybe not a bad idea. That's what they chose to go with. But I think characters are usually what draw people in. Like the promise of exciting characters with exciting abilities and dangerous new faces and stuff like that, you know? Retro Records, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 40 months. Holy shit, man. Thank you for the long time support. Hey, Morge, never thought that Oda could get me to tear up about some no-name giants that I didn't give a shit about a chapter ago. That's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't even really the main stuff. This isn't like in the big God Valley flashback or anything. This is just random. Like, I think this is a really fucking cool scene that Oda came up with. I think it's a great scene that he came up with. I feel like I hope that this is appreciated in the long run as one of Oda's like better writing scenes for minor characters. I'm not saying like, you know, like he's generally very good at doing stuff like that, like pulling it out of thin air, like for Senior Pink or whatever. But this is a phenomenal scenario that he set up with the kids. Like at first I thought the kids being made to march with the arrows, with the invisible thorns around them to a ship, I was just like, it's just classic Oda, like adding some time limit based stakes to this or whatever. But as soon as it shifted into like hard pivoted into the scenario of it's kids who are awake being forced to march off a cliff to their death, right? And are being forced to experience the looming reality of their own mortality. Suddenly it got elevated to a top tier dramatic potential scene. And then what Oda followed it up with the parents and loved ones of the children all coming in and willingly sacrificing themselves and putting themselves through literal pain, suffering, like stabbing themselves and running themselves through with blood pouring out and choosing to throw away their lives just to make the kids passing feel less alone and to give them some comfort in their death. Like that's just a really... Like, I would go so far as to say this. Oda could have made a bigger scene out of this. Like, he could have really saved up for this moment. He could have made a huge, like, dedicated a full chapter to this scene and really brought out the waterworks. I think the fact that he just casually did this as, like, a halfway, like, component of the chapter, right, before Loki swoops in, I think it's just a testament to how he's got, like, so many good ideas for so many like emotional scenarios that he can just like whip it out like that for some random giant kids and random giant side characters. But I'd say one thing really quick, or not quick, but like one little thing that I'd say is that I genuinely feel like I'm not going to say Elbaf has the best cast of side characters of any island, but I think it's up there. I think Elbaf might have the best cast of side characters in an island, and I think I might love the nation of Elbaf more than any other nation that we've gotten in One Piece. And we've had some really good ones, you know? Because I think the cool thing with Elbaf is that it's not just the heavy... Like, I feel like with Elbaf, we know, obviously, a lot of the main big player giants, right? It really, like, Loki, you know, Dory, I think it really helps that Oda's, like, a lot of these giants are giants we've met at different points over the course of the story already, so we have some level of attachment to them, you know, Dory Brogi, Oimokashi, Hajrudin, right? So it's already the seeds are there. But with Elbaf, what's really cool is like it just feels like there's so many giants that are just simple citizens that are endearing characters, and they're not taking an annoying amount of focus up. Like, I like a lot of the... Shit, if my other monitor was working right now, I would pull up my Elbaf character rankings, because I would definitely shuffle. I've got a lot of shuffling to do. Like, random stuff like fucking Ange. I like Ange now, and I thought she was a traitor for so long. You know, like, I think Oda's just done a phenomenal job with the side characters of Elbaf, and two, he's made me really love the spirit of Elbaf in general. I think he's just handled the giants really, really wonderfully. Because, like, I like a lot of side characters from Alabasta, but I wouldn't be like, you know, I just love the general people of Alabasta. I love their vibe. Like, I just love the spirit, the overarching character of the nation, right? It's like, I don't know, like random Alabasta person, right? Same with most countries. Dressrosa, I kind of dislike a lot of them because I'm like, fuck you guys for being mean to Riku and Rebecca for so long. Fuck you guys, even though it's, I can understand the fair reasoning for why they might feel that, but still, fuck these guys bullying Rebecca for so long, yada yada. There's a lot of nations that, like, to varying degrees, I enjoy the average populace, but I think Elbaf genuinely, in the last few chapters, I truly love, like, they're very welcoming vibe and everything like that. Awesome, right? From the get-go, they're partying, feasting, just their emphasis on culture, education, yada yada. But then the spirit that they have that we've seen come together in the last couple chapters, and really what was displayed this chapter, where even a bunch of nobodies on Elbaf, they've got this just heart in them and this like really profound moral character where like random nobodies on Elbaf will sacrifice their lives like this just to make their loved children not feel sad as they die. Like that's the craziest part of this whole scenario to me anyway, is that the kids are going to die anyway. Like the sacrifice the parents and the loved ones, etc., are making is not to save the kids' lives. They're killing themselves just so the kids are not sad when they die. Or not as sad when they die. Like, that's so cool. Like, that's just a really, really profound idea for Oda to write for, like, an entire nation of people to kind of just be like this and have this sort of virtue to them, you know? Kark, thanks for the 5. Do you plan on checking out Kagurabachi anytime soon? I've been seeing more people like Brago and Civ catching up on it. I do really plan. If you guys see my late penalties sheet, Kagurabachi is the next one that I really, really want to read. Yeah. Alabasta was cool. Yeah, like I like lots of the islands or whatever, but I think Elbaf is the first one where the general populace of Elbaf actually really, really moves me. Let me write down a couple quick notes. Hold on. Here we go. What is it? Hold on. What was I writing? Okay, there we go. Okay. Kark, thanks for the 5. Oh yeah, we covered that. Yeah, Kagurabachi I do really want to read because it's short and sweet, right? So it's like a fun next read. It's my order is next is Kagurabachi, then Kingdom. Thomas Davis, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 33 months. Glad we can put the evil Ange theory to rest. Only time I was legit embarrassed to be part of the community. It was so stupid. I don't think it was stupid. I think that it's just, like, we've gotten really used to, in One Piece arcs, like, it's just become the norm at this point in One Piece arcs, that there's a traitor. Like, you go back through every single One Piece arc that we've had recently, Oda likes that trope. He just likes that trope. He really likes it in the... I think post-time skip, Oda's been kind of in his, like, Game of Thrones mode to some degree. Like, he's really set up a lot of post-time skip kind of like Game of Thrones-esque. There's even Doflamingo's speech about the throne wars and everything like that. And part of that is, you know, like, let's go back arc after arc, right? in Punk Hazard, Virgo is a traitor to the Marines, right? Dressrosa, you've got some traitors, right? Like Viola betrays Doflamingo. I'd say it really kicks up after as we go on with like Whole Cake Island. There's a lot of double crossing. Like Pudding double crosses the Straw Hats. Capone Beige double crosses Big Mom. Pudding Reverse double crosses Big Mom. Like there's a lot of that going on. Stussy turns out to be a double agent. Yada yada. You get to Wano. Oda went balls to the wall with lots of betrayals. Denjiro's betraying Orochi. Kanjiro's betraying the Alliance. Lots of backstabbing. Egghead Island. Stussy, again, double agent, right? Sentomaru double crosses the world government. It's just, like, Oda just likes doing that quite a bit. You could track it throughout most of the arcs of the story. So we get to Elbaf and we're just like, yeah, Elbaf is going to have someone, right? I think that's another testament to how well Oda's written the vibe of Elbaf, that as it turns out, everyone in Elbaf is just good. They're all really good characters, all really good people. Growth Stonks, thanks for the 10. Loki, previous Devil Fruit user, was the dragon Ryuma Slade, foreshadowed by the 1094 color spread. Onigashima is that dragon because Frankie's Wano Vivre card revealed the OG name. What? 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 Ryugashima? What? What are you talking about? What? How have I never heard of this? What are you talking about? What? Where did Frankie's Vivre? I don't know about the Ryuma shit. And you know my feelings on color spreads, foreshadowing things. I can look at the 1094 color spread, but we already know the dragon Ryuma killed. It wasn't anything like that. There is a big dragon there. That is pretty cool. Shit. That would be sick if Ryuma did kill that dragon. If Ryuma killed the dragon from ancient times, that would be insane. Fuck, Zoro killing Loki? That is interesting. Where's the Ryugashima thing? Huh? Frankie's Wano Vivre card revealed the OG name is Ryugashima. Does anyone have Frankie's Vivre card on hand or like a link or something? Flitch, thanks for the 5. 2 crazy things. Loki has wing tattoos on his arms. Also, ain't it crazy that we live in a timeline where Jinbei somehow makes it to Laugh Tale? I don't... No, I mean, Jinbei making the Laugh Tale is not the craziest thing. It's just... it is kind of... I guess it is kind of... Like, he sailed the seas for so long. It's like, well, I guess I'm going to Laugh Tale now. Yeah, Loki has wing tattoos on his arms. I guess you could say that's foreshadowing. But a lot of characters have wings on their arms and stuff. Vista upscale, W Vista stocks. Thomas Davis, thanks for the 10. Ange theory was stupid because it was misogynistic. There was no reason for her to be evil besides not being attractive. And the last traitor was York, a hot girl. It made no sense. Yeah, I forgot York was the other big traitor of Egghead Island. I think it's just because, like, frequently, I think, throughout One Piece, Oda is more okay with making... Like, you're right. Like, York was a surprise traitor, right? But historically in One Piece... Oda is generally more okay with writing, like, major evil bad guy women when they're unattractive, right? Alvida, Big Mom, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like, if you look at the biggest One Piece villains historically, it's more often than not like unattractive female characters, right? That's just kind of the case. Yeah, it's more so. You could say it's misogynistic, but I think it's more so readers playing. Like, I think if we were readers of a different series, we wouldn't be saying that. I think it's more so readers are to some degree aware of Oda's own internal sort of misogynistic tendencies. That's why. It's kind of just like no one's like we know the author well enough that we're like, Gerd is this sweet, beautiful, traditionally sexy woman giant. She's not gonna I think we all subconsciously know that Oda's not gonna make her a villain, you know? Bismarck Owosu, welcome to the Yonko. Thank you very, very much for the support. Enjoy, first of all, test out your emotes and everything, but also make sure you go and enjoy all of the, you don't have to listen to all of them, but there's podcasts that come out every week that are exclusive to Yonko tier, so definitely check those out. And with tomorrow's video, of course, with every video there's an accompanying podcast, so you get access to that as well. So I hope you enjoyed tomorrow's podcast. Quick Movie Making says, I don't care if Oda is sexist, not gonna lie, I'm too tired. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it dramatically changes my reading of One Piece, if I'm being honest. So, for better or worse, like, writers have different areas. Like, to me, it's not good, but this chapter is so phenomenal. Like, that's the last thing on my mind, right? Like, it's just, for better or worse. And, like, there's fair critiques that people can have of that, but it's never been something that dramatically affects my reading of One Piece, which is why I don't really care to like fight to critique about it or to defend it one way or another. It's just like, yeah, this is like an aspect of One Piece. I'm gonna care more about shit like, why did Wano have like 5,000 different side characters that got so much focus, and why were the Strahds pushed all the way to the back, you know? That's where more of my critiques lie. Would be cool if he wasn't. Yep, it would be, but it is what it is. Yeah, Oda always makes it clear that at the end of the day, his target audience is young boys. Yeah, so I think at a certain point, like, if you're writing for a target audience, all that really matters is their opinion, right? I think it's okay to write for a target audience and then not care about the opinions of others outside the target audience, because you don't have to read it, Indie Sky says, could this be why Kaido assumed he was Nika? He thought he had this version of a dragon fruit, hence the sun god of destruction, maybe. Ooh. King thought Kaido was Nika as well. We need some more clarification on the connection between the dragon and Nika. Because, like, the big thing that needs to be remembered is that it's been made very clear that in no version of how people interpret Nika is Nika a dragon. Like, you just have to go back to read the explanation that Jarl gives. Jarl explains that, I think it's chapter, I want to say 37? 1137? No? Yeah, let's see. I think it's chapter 1137. Maybe it's 1136? It's 1136. Sorry, let me read this out loud for you guys. Yeah, 1136. So, the fuck? Yeah, Jarl basically explains that there's many different interpretations of Nika, right? Is he the hero save the world, the destroyer lays waste to all, blah, blah, blah. But he clarifies that Nika, like, there is a specific description to Nika that is always specific. Nika wears white clouds and appears with white hair, clothes, and jolly laughter. He's never depicted as a dragon. At least that's what's implied so far, right? So we need a bit more clarification, right? Here, even if we read the current chapter that just came out, hold on, loading, yeah. On a curious day, blah, 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 a giant beast shall appear to blot out the skies, and the sun god will rise. So is that referring to the giant beast as the sun god, or is it referring to the sun god riding the giant beast? I don't know. I don't know. Is Loki bigger than freaking Zoe right now? Maybe. Maybe it's comparable size. I feel like it's supposed to be two separate things. Yeah, I guess there's just more to the Nika myth in general. Ender, yeah, thank you for clarifying. Morge has always read normal chats. He's just normally swamped with supers and going off on massive side tangents, lol. Yeah, that's basically... that's probably my biggest... No, I think you guys like the massive side tangents, but usually I'm gonna, like, if somebody supers, I'm gonna respond to that, and then that can often trigger a large side tangent, and then as I'm going off on the side tangent, then more supers accumulate that I then respond to, etc. Yeah, this it can be interpreted as that being Nika. I don't know, but from what it sounds like, everything that two sun gods would be really cool. I mean, that's what I talked about much earlier. In the start of the arc, I said that Loki probably has a dark version of the sun god fruit, the destroyer version. But I'm just surprised that it's being portrayed as a dragon, because, like, isn't this dragon, wouldn't it be called Nidhogg? Because that's what the children of Elbaf imagine, you know, as the scariest thing, right? So, like, I mean, like, the children of Elbaf, like, everyone in Elbaf clearly imagines Nika as that white-haired warrior, right? Even what they imagine as the MMA, that is taking that form, you know? Meek, thanks for the 2. What if Loki was at Marineford by himself? I think it's an easy wipe for Loki. I cannot imagine anyone doing jack shit to him. I think it's an easy wipe for Loki. I don't... Because I might be overestimating. Because, I mean... Well, okay, like, because people are going to be like, well, what about Mihawk and stuff? If you recall, towards the beginning of the stream, I said that certain characters, so Shanks, Mihawk, and Dragon, I'm just not even going to scale them right now until we get more information. So imagine, poof, they're just gone. Not including them in my rankings till we get some more details, okay? So, if we ignore Mihawk's presence there, which is funny because, like, Mihawk got stalled by Vista, but based on how strong Mihawk should theoretically be, right? Like, let's just ignore his presence there, right? Outside of that, Loki just wipes Marineford. I would go so far as to say that everybody at Marineford, Whitebeard Pirates, and the Marines could have teamed up on Loki. I don't know what they're doing to him. Because, I mean, right off the bat, Loki passive. This is a passive ability. Passively, he calls down a storm of lightning that is essentially stronger than what NL did with Maxim, right? It's an Elbaf scaled storm. Like, the lightning is fucking like, there's lightning bolts larger than mountains and stuff coming down, right? That already wipes out most people at Marineford. And then beyond that, I don't know. How are they damaging him? Like, what are they doing? Who's hurting Loki? Yeah, okay. Andrea Barbieri says, I think Akainu should be in the unscalable category, given he might have unlocked Conqueror's Haki against Aokiji. So, just because Akainu is not mentioned as much, I'm also... So let me fully clarify. There's actually 2 other characters that I don't scale at the moment. Akainu and Shamrock. because they're both two big unknowns. If Akainu is the same strength he was pre-time skip, then he's equal to Aokiji, which is, strong but nothing crazy. He's not doing jack shit to Loki, right? If Akainu has unlocked Conqueror's Haki, then it's a whole different ballgame. He can be as strong as Oda wants to write him, right? And then the other X factor is Shamrock. If Oda writes him as strong as Shanks, well, then he falls in that category of like where Shanks is, right? Hard to scale. So really, I've got 5 characters that I just consider this vague area where they can be all over the tier list, right? They can be any of these characters, I would say, they could fall for me like lower than Kaido potentially, or higher than Loki, right? That's any of these 5 characters, which is Shanks, Mihawk, Dragon, Akainu, Shamrock. Akainu is the one I'm shiftiest on, because I'm like, even if he unlocked Conquerors, I mean, Haki's just such a powerful ability in One Piece that if Oda just says this character's got like all-time great Haki, then they got all-time great Haki. But you know what I mean? JP, thanks for the 20. The Emu Sea Devil theory is good, but in the mural, the source of devils is attributed to a forest god. It'd be the prevailing myth during Emu's time. So what's up with that? It's the only piece that doesn't fit. Yeah, the forest god's an interesting idea. Forest god's a very interesting idea. The source of devils is attributed to a forest god. Yeah, I don't know if there's a forest god fruit. I would not be surprised at this point if there's a forest god fruit. So if there is a forest god fruit, yeah. Because in the mural, it's attributed to a forest god. But in general, people seem to believe in the sea devil, right? It's tricky because, like, as far as we know, the general populace of One Piece, right? So how are devil fruits born? They're born from what the people believe. As far as we know, the general populace of One Piece seems to believe that devils come from a sea devil, right? But it's the giants and their specific text that talks about a forest god. So it is a conflicting idea. I don't know how to reconcile that personally. I think that we just have to wait and see. I think with where we're at in One Piece, like every new chapter sort of gives us more pieces of the lore that sort of clicks into place, but it also has potential to throw previously understood things into question. It's just a really, I don't know, like this is something I talk about in the patron podcast that'll come out tomorrow, but I'll share a little bit of it right here, which is that it's crazy. I think that One Piece lore changed much more or opened up way more in the last 150 chapters than it did in the previous 400 chapters. I think from Fishman Island through the halfway point of Wano, our understanding of the One Piece lore didn't change that much from what we already knew pre-time skip. We just got some few additional pieces. And then in the last 150 chapters, it's been like a runaway freight train where everything, millions of reveals really, really fast, new information, new deities, gods. Like, if you just think like concepts that would have been wild to us 5 years ago are now basically just accepted as like, okay, yeah, this is a thing. Okay, I wonder which god's going to be next, which god fruit, yada yada. Like, it's changed so much. It's changed so much. Forest equals sea? I don't know. Do you think Big Mom knew how strong Loki was when she was trying to marry Lola off? I don't know, because I think she could have just assumed a fair assumption, which is that Elbaf is still the strongest nation in the world. Because Elbaf kind of was the strongest nation in the world still till Harold's death and till Loki left, right? because it still had its super powerful army. It's really just the current Elbaf that is an extremely nerfed version of Elbaf, because current Elbaf, just like all the great warriors of Elbaf, like Elbaf's actual army, they all either died during Harold's rampage, or they went out to sea with Loki, and presumably things didn't end well for them, right? So that's all of Elbaf's army, right? Current Elbaf, the people left here, it's pretty much all just like passive characters who became pacifistic over the last several decades, last 50, 60 years. So current Elbaf is very weak, but Big Mom might not be up to date on that, so she might just have been looking for Elbaf's army. It is very hard to say how much people were aware of Loki, because I think it's very likely that Loki, for whatever reason, didn't get to flex his abilities that much during his... This is the part of his story that's confusing to me, because Loki leaves 14 years ago, and then 6 years ago he's captured, right? So that's an 8-year window where he's supposedly rampaging at sea. Like, from everything we hear that he's been rampaging at sea during this time, and then we also hear that he tells us himself that his goal was to go after Emu and the Celestial Dragons, right? Either of these two things would get you an insanely high bounty, like doing either of these things. If Loki's out as a force of nature just rampaging through the seas, considering Loki's strength, an island-sized dragon with Conqueror's Haki that can summon like giant storms and all of this shit, right? To me, that's like a 10 billion berry bounty on the spot. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but like, to me, you just look at him and you're like, this is basically an ancient weapon, is what we're looking at, right? It's essentially, we're looking at an ancient weapon, right? A being that has the power to level islands pretty easily, right? That's an ancient weapon, right? Like, keep in mind, Shirahoshi is considered an ancient weapon because she can control so many Sea Kings. Loki just like waltzed through a bunch of monsters that are like Sea Kings size. Like, he essentially is like a shit ton of Sea Kings in one. He essentially does what Pluton does, which is like Pluton can fuck up islands really easily, right? So to me, it's just like, why is the bounty not higher? That's the really big discrepancy. What was Loki doing during this time? Because even if he's not actually rampaging and destroying islands, because he's not actually a bad guy, presumably he'd be going after the world government. If he's going after the world government, then that also gets you a really high bounty. We know that from the Straw Hats. So what's the deal here? I don't know. So it's kind of like, why is... how aware were other characters of Loki's strength? They must have been aware of him, but did he... to me, it sounds almost as though, like, he didn't actually make that much of a ruckus in the New World across 8 years relative to what you would expect of a character of his strength and personality, and goals. That's the interesting thing to me. Anand Karthik, thanks for the 2. Does Shamrock measure up to Loki after this chapter? I don't know. I think that's a really hard call. I have a thought on the Shamrock situation that I think is very interesting that comes out in tomorrow's podcast that accompanies the video. So it was a little bit too tangential to include in the video, but I do have some idea of... I'll say this right here. I think Shamrock ultimately fights either Shanks or Loki. The setup is there for both of those angles. And if he fights Loki, I think there's a very interesting angle that Oda could go down. That's why Shamrock falls into the unscalable category for me, right? So 5 characters. And next time, if I do a top 30 or something, you're just not going to see me include these characters. Shanks, Mihawk, Dragon. This is an order of introduction. Shanks, Mihawk, Dragon, Akainu, and Shamrock. Not going to rank any of them. JP, thanks for the 10. Seeing Loki as the strongest of the ancient giants makes me wonder what the peak Lunarian would be like if they were considered gods and Vegapunk himself thinks of them as the base for the ultimate beings. Well, keep in mind that Vegapunk also thinks that giants are ultimate beings because the Seraphim are not just Lunarians, they're Lunarians and giants mixed together, right? And it's been implied, like, it's actually been talked about multiple times now. Like, Law talked about it, Big Mom talked about it. Law talked about how the world government's longest running goal has been to try and create an army of giants to try and solve gigantification. And Big Mom was also trying to, like, she was paying Caesar to solve gigantification for her. Like, every faction recognizes and puts a lot of investment into creating giant soldiers, right? So you're right that Vegapunk treated Lunarians as, like, part of what it means to create the ultimate being, but he also considered giants to be part of that as well. That's what makes Seraphim such a crazy combination. It's like the two strongest races, giants and Lunarians, mixed together, plus devil fruit abilities, right? Plus the genes of warlords, right? Now, that being said, I feel like the average Lunarian is stronger than the average giant by a long shot, just because ultimately the average giant can be KO'd by, like, any decently strong character, whereas with the average Lunarian, even if the Lunarian has, like, no combat ability whatsoever, you straight up can't damage them, right? So, yeah, the peak Lunarian. I wonder what the strongest... Yeah, I wonder if we go back to the ancient times, if we're going to learn about, like, the strongest Lunarian warriors of all time. I wonder if that's a character we have yet to meet. Like, the ultimate Lunarians. That would be really cool. Oda's just got so much. Oda's got so much going on. So was Oars actually pulling continents? I think that whatever the Onigashima giant was could actually do that. I think that Oars could not do that. There's no way Oars could pull continents. It's just not a thing. Like, Oars is the size of a number. Like, they literally established that. Oars is just a normal ancient giant, basically. Like, ancient giants were rarer back then. So it's like they became rarer and rarer, so creatures of that size were less common. That's crazy. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe Oars really was a top tier, though. Maybe Oars could pull ancient... Sorry, I'm actually being stupid. Oars probably could actually pull continents, now that I think about it, because, like, the ancient giants are, like, the ancient giants that we know of, like Loki, Herald, like the legendary ancient giants. A very strong ancient giant is, like, proportionally super powerful, right? Like, if you told me, like, Herald could pull... I don't think Herald could pull Elbaf or something like that, but if you told me that Herald could pull, like, a mountain, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm actually being stupid. Like, maybe Oars really was that strong in his era. So that's who knows? Yeah, I think my initial thought was that like, oh, it has to, like, maybe the Onigashima giant is the true Oars and Gecko Moria just mistook that ancient giant for Oars, but I might be wrong. Loki could definitely be the red line puller at this point. Yeah, but Loki's got the fruit, so that's not really fair, right? But still, like, Herald, yeah, if you told me Herald could pull along, like, a mountain-sized thing or something, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Or, yeah. It's a mistranslation. His actual epithet is land puller or country puller. Okay. Yeah, but that's still pretty big, right? So, actually, what's really interesting... Yeah, Zombie Ryuma was way substantially weaker than Prime Ryuma. Yeah, so that's the thing that gives credence to the idea that Prime Oars really might have been that strong. Because that's the thing. Moria seemed to think that he could conquer the world with Oars. So maybe it's because Oars of Legend was legitimately that strong. Because with things now, like, you know, now we're hearing more things that are reshaping our power scaling views or whatever. The one thing that sounds consistent throughout One Piece history is that, one, the Elbaf legitimately was the strongest nation, generally speaking, right? Elbaf giants today are just weak because of pacifism, right? But the thing that seems consistent is that there's always been ancient giants that like each era has had at least one like big time top tier ancient giant, because like obviously Loki's our guy today, right? Loki, strongest giant in the world, right? Top tier, yada yada. Before him was Harold, right? Harold was the strongest on the seas for like probably a century until Rox came along and was the first guy that was his equal, right? So Harold, top tier Pirate King level type guy, right? And then supposedly before that, Jarl in his prime was, it sounds like, as strong as Harold. It depends how you interpret the line about Jarl's strength, but it sounds like Jarl, like prime Jarl, was like also like tippy top tier level, you know, like prime Harold level or something like that, right? So, yeah, I mean, like Emu actually even talks about like how Harold is soft compared to his predecessors. Emu means that more so in terms of personality, but it's not like Emu marvels at like Harold being exceptionally strong by the standards of like the previous Elbaf kings. He's more so like happy that finally we've got an Elbaf king who I can kind of bend to my will, right? So like Loki, then before Loki you had Harold, then before Harold you had Jarl, right? Prime Jarl supposedly being probably on that level. So then maybe before, if you go back before Jarl, maybe fucking Ors, because Ors was 500 years ago, right? Jarl's prime was like 300 years ago. Harold seems to have been the next generation after him, and then Loki after him. So then, yeah, maybe Ors is kind of the predecessor. Dare Boppler, thanks a lot. All bounty are way too low. Yonko Plus should be 100x. I've personally felt like Oda kind of hard. I think Oda was always heading towards Luffy's final bounty being something like 5.6 billion berry. And I think Oda might have hard capped himself there because I think the biggest bounty discrepancy is that, because what Oda did was the first half of the story became a lot longer than Oda anticipated, right? So what's interesting to me is actually the biggest bounty discrepancy that I personally notice in the story is pre-time skip to post-time skip. Because, like, characters, that's why Oda had to add in the stipulation that it becomes very hard to raise your bounty after 300 million. Because, like, nowadays we're like, oh my god, Luffy's bounty is 3 billion, that's crazy. 3 billion is really low considering he was at 300 million as of Enies Lobby. You know, like, it's insane that Luffy, like, he did the Enies Lobby stuff. His bounty's at 300 million. Characters like Kid, their bounties at like 315 million, etc. Like, so many characters have like 200 million, 300 million berry bounties. These characters are fucking weaker than vice admirals, right? 2 years of training, becoming super strong, hockey, yada yada, like super powerful, like characters or whatever, and then their bounty goes up like by 100 or 200 million, you know? That's where the real strange part is, you know? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, Luffy's bounty should be, like, I think Oda had to hard adjust, because, like, nowadays we recognize that Doflamingo having a former bounty of 340 million, that's very low, right? It can be reconciled with the fact that it's his former bounty, but a lot of bounties that were big back then were like, okay, no, Kuma, Doflamingo, these guys, their bounties should be way bigger, right? I think a lot of that just comes down to Oda already having the end point planned out of like Luffy's bounty be about 5.6, but the story of the first half kept going, and Oda's like, oh, I gotta raise Luffy's bounty again. Okay, we're at 100. Okay, now we're at 300 or whatever, right? It's crazy that Luffy's bounty went from 100 to 300, like tripled from Alabasta to Enies Lobby, but then everything from like freeing Impel Down, Marineford, doing all that stuff, coming back, creating the Grand Fleet, defeating Doflamingo, yada yada, that gets him from 300 to like 500, you know? Does increasing bounties really incentivize bounty hunters to go after them at this point? It's just for show. That's the funny thing. Julian says, I don't see your point. I'm confused. maybe I'm getting into it like too much, but like I think if you just look at the scale of where like the impact and strength that various supernova have pre-time skip, right? And then you look at like the massive jump that happens from pre-time skip to post-time skip. The bounty increases don't really match. Like Luffy's bounty should have like skyrocketed between pre-time skip to post-time skip, but it really didn't, you know? I think that's because like Oda even wrote into the story it's hard for bounties to increase after 300 million. I think because he realized that like the rate at like to actually account for the fact that okay, the Straughts are now like way stronger, but he didn't want the Straughts to be like in the billion berry bounty range. He just had to say that no, it's harder for bounties to increase after 300 million. Oh, let's get the stream lights up to 200 real quick. Yeah, does anyone have confirmation about that statement from earlier about Frankie's Vivre card saying that it's called Ryugashima? Yeah, no immediate bounty increase after Egghead only reinforces Morge's point. Yeah, I think Oda's really having to stall basically to prevent Luffy's bounty from getting to like the 5 billion range because in the first place, his Wano bounty should have been way higher. Like just way, way, way high. It makes no sense that Lawn Kids are that high and Luffy's is the same as theirs. It just makes no sense for it to just be 3 billion. Luffy's bounty at the end of Wano should have been way higher. My assumption is Oda's trying to not get him to that 5.6, 5 billion berry range, right? Egghead does definitely confirm that because Egghead is the biggest, like, it's the biggest thing that would clearly and blatantly demand a huge bounty increase. It's all world government, anti-world government focus, right? Like, Luffy's responsible for most of the Egghead incident. No bounty increase, only Dorian Brogy. It's kind of crazy. Meeks has got to go. Gonna listen to your Pirate King podcast while I do work. See ya. I had fun with the Pirate King podcast. I always Pirate King podcast is always the most fun. I think just because it feels very stream of consciousness, and I'm just enjoying answering like a very large variety of questions. But the one catch is I always do the Pirate King podcast like late at night. So I'm always sitting down and I'm like, okay, time to get through all the Pirate King podcast questions. And in my mind, I'm like, it's really late at night. I'm going to try and set like a sort of timeline for like how I want to get through all of these questions. So I'm like, let me aim for like an hour, 20 minutes, hour and a half. And I always run over time, basically. So like I really enjoy doing it, but because I enjoy doing it, I always end up making the podcast longer than I intend. And then I end up sleeping like late as fuck. The hardest Pirate King podcast that I ever had to do was when I moved back in 2024. I was moving apartments and like crazy, insanely, intensely packed week. So much work, so much setup, yada yada. And then it was like 2 a.m. and it's like, okay, I'm like dead tired. Time to do the Pirate King podcast. And I was like, I just need to relax. So I was like, fuck it. So I think I smoked for that podcast because I was like, let me just, you know what? I'll just be answering these questions as I relax and slowly go to sleep. So it's the most out there Pirate King podcast that I've ever done. Up to this day, it's not confirmed that Kid could even hurt Big Bob. I don't know. Griffin says, what do you rate the chapter out of 10? I mean, I talk about this in the chapter review, but I do rate the chapter 10 out of 10. I think it's an easy 10 out of 10. Some of Oda's best emotional storytelling in the, like, just great display of Oda's emotional storytelling in the first half, and just crazy, crazy hype stuff for the second half, you know? Jaquan, thanks for the 5. Goddamn, forgot to give your annual compliment for 2025 Big Pimpin'. Mord Shop was banging last year, grabbed 9 posters. I hope you enjoyed the posters, man. Thanks for the support, obviously, but like, you know, I'm sure you enjoyed the posters. I hope you jumped in on some of the deals for that. And if you're in the mood for some clothing, definitely check out the deal that we've got going this month for One Dream Studio. We've got all hoodies, buy 2, get 1 free, and we've got the Ice, Magma, and Light. All buy 2, get 1 free, and they're all $80 off. And this deal is only running for this month. Like, seriously, only running for this month. We're not gonna, it's just done after February. Done after February. Just because it's production line stuff. It's just the way things work. We cannot offer that deal any further after February. You can still buy the hoodies after this, but it'll be back to the usual price, and the buy 2 get 1 is gone, so it becomes very difficult to get the full Admiral set. Do you guys think Kid is out of the story now? I think Loki's the biggest. We are going to wrap stream in a little bit, but I feel like I used to think that Kid will make a comeback. I feel like Loki's just too damn similar to Kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Loki's really fucking similar to Kid. Like, persona, kind of being Luffy's counterpart, but the difference is just that Loki's the real deal. You know what I mean? Like, why would we even care if Kid comes back now? You know what I mean? And I think that's fucking insane, because that means that Oda basically had Big Mom be defeated by a character that Oda never even cared about for the story. Everybody thinking he's out is stupid. It's just, I didn't think so before, but now it's just like, doesn't Loki almost feel very, like, even like the shtick of like the tongue hanging out and stuff like that, like, it's fucking similar. They both got their fucking fur coats and stuff like that, you know? It's similar personalities. I don't know. Let me ask that. Is Kid out of the story? How do I phrase this? Because I'm not saying he's dead. He doesn't have to be dead. But is Kid... Does Kid still have a significant role to play? Justin, thanks for the 2. Speaking of Kid, thoughts on Uruj's role? I used to think that Uruj would come back in this arc, but now I'm just like, that'll take up space. I have no idea what the fuck Uruj could do. Like, what his relevance might be. But again, we didn't really know anything about Bonnie's role, and it turned out to be like disproportionately important to what anyone would have expected. Captain John was a bum, and he literally has his fruit. He's Captain John level max. If Kid's out of the story, it frustrates me even more, because it's like, why then make him such a big part of Wano and like eat up screen time for no reason? For no reason. It's like Luffy's in fucking Udon and Oda's playing up this rivalry with Kid. Is the rivalry with Kid significant? No. It's just, it doesn't matter. GDYY7 says, I know Oda probably got something for Kid, but I generally hope he's written this fraud out of the story, both him and Law. Complete waste of time. Let's focus on Luffy's actual rivals, Shanks and Blackbeard. Yeah, it seems like Oda doesn't actually want to give Luffy a real rival in his generation, you know? Like, At this point, Luffy's peers actually feel like, obviously, Blackbeard, Loki, and weirdly enough, I guess in a sense, Shanks, even though he's Luffy's father figure in a sense. Henchme says Oda needed a way to take out Big Mom, but there's so many other ways that are like narratively sort of significant for other characters, you know? It's just weird to, because Big Mom is a huge deal in the story, right? Like Whole Cake Island is an entire arc dedicated to her. The Yonko is such a big aspect of One Piece. So much of Luffy's dream is him talking about how, like, I need to defeat all 4 emperors. He reiterates that over and over, right? And then it's just like, wait, but all along Oda didn't really have a plan for this particular emperor, even though he kept her in the story for so long, and made her a main villain of, like, not 1 but 2 of the longest arcs in the story, right? Like, keep in mind, Whole Cake Island is 80 chapters and Wano's 150 chapters, so all in all, Big Mom is like the longest running major villain, like, in back-to-back arcs of One Piece, right? Huge significance in the world in general, huge significance in the narrative, huge significance in Luffy's personal journey, main villain role for 2 straight arcs, 2 of the longest arcs in One Piece, 230 chapters. But Oda didn't have, like, there's nothing significant, like, he wrote a throwaway character to defeat Big Mom, which is just bizarre, because it's like, why not give her then to, like, if such a significant villain's in the story, why not give her to, like, a character that's actually going to be significant in the story, you know, like, and make that part of their journey. I guess you could say Law. I guess you could say Law. I still feel like Luffy should have taken out Big Mom like he talked about and used her as a stepping stone to Kaido. But, I mean, that's just me. Tom9739, thanks for the 5. I always thought the destruction of Law and Kid's ships weird. Like, symbolism, I get that, but with Elbaf and Adamwood with the Sunny, it could be something. Maybe Kid's ship is rebuilt. Who knows? It's also strange because Kid actually has, like, notable subordinate, like Killer and stuff. I don't know. JP, thanks for the 5. Oda's original plan was to have Doflamingo and Wano, so we probably would have been Law's matchup. Did Oda ever say that, or is that something we assumed? But that would be really cool. Hell, like, I'll be honest, because someone just mentioned Sanji. I think it would have been better writing if Sanji's cake straight up took Big Mom to heaven, like he talked about. Maybe not killed her. I think that'd be kind of dark. But something, like, you know, like, do it for a character. Like, Big Mom is such a major part of the story. Why just have, like, a random... it's essentially giving a random throwaway character and, like, having that character take out one of the most important villains of the story for no reason, because that character has no actual significance in the narrative. And that character is going to get written out, like 10 chapters later. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. The Straughts could have had a team fight against Big Mom while the Scabbards fought Kaido. Luffy begins to learn advanced Conqueror's Haki and Big Mom fight. There's lots of options. I mean, instead of Luffy fighting Kaido so many times, have Big Mom get another round in. I mean, like, Luffy talked about defeating Big Mom in Whole Cake. And he promised Big Mom he would defeat her. He promised Katakuri he would defeat her. He fights Big Mom again in Udon. Like, literally, like, there's like, Luffy's facing Kaido in Act 1. He faces Big Mom in Act 2. But all of it leads to just, like, well, who defeats Big Mom? Random characters, Law and Kid, who have no connection to Big Mom and don't give a shit about her. The one thing you could say about Kid is that he did raid her territory once. But that's not going to go anywhere because Kid's not going to matter as a character. I don't know. But it looks like people are leaning towards no for Kid. My hope is that Kid returns in some significant way, because I do think there's potential for that character. And I just also think it would be really shitty writing. Like, it would make all of Wano even shittier retroactively if we were to discover that the entire Kid subplot which takes up a lot of focus, and ultimately, like, the second most important antagonist of Wano goes to Kid, if all of that was just basically for no reason, because the Kid storyline literally does not matter at all. I think that would make Wano somehow even worse retroactively. But yeah. All right, everybody. I am going to call it a day here. I really love this chapter. Really love the direction of the story that we're headed. And yeah, definitely watch out for tomorrow's video. I think it's a very, very interesting one, talking about how a lot just came together for Loki, the mural, everything we're seeing on the right side of the mural, yada, yada. So just watch out for that. And yeah, with that, thank you all for tuning in.